the pain like.
Hey guys, dearyoongi here, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be exploring the world of overworked idols, or as I like to call them, overemployed. Don't worry, we'll get into what that means. I might have made it up. So we'll be discussing what exactly we mean, as well as some examples, and the pros and more importantly, the cons of this lifestyle. So without further ado, let's get started by discussing what exactly we mean by busy, overworked idols. I think it's important to start with the meaning on this one because I know straight away you guys could argue in the comments. Well, we know for a fact that pretty much all idols are stretched beyond their limits when it comes to strenuous schedules, from early in the morning to late at night with little to no breaks, etc. And while this is true, the idea of being an overworked or overemployed idol is slightly different. When I say an idol is overworked or overemployed, by this I mean the number of schedules they have to additionally bear to their group activities is higher than that of the rest of the group, or a normal person should be able to handle. So this includes the idols who aside from focusing on singing, dancing, rapping, diet, physique, English or other studies, etc., if they're still of schooling age, these idols also have other responsibilities. This sometimes includes things like hosting music shows, appearing in lots of variety content, sometimes their own shows or vlogs, etc. on top of this. To further elaborate on the definition, it would be helpful if we looked at some examples of overworked and overly employed idols. First of all, I want to start with Jaehyun of boynextdoor. I've decided to start with Jaehyun because he was officially declared the busiest K-pop idol of 2024 with 697 schedules, closely followed by Mark of NCT who had 674 schedules and has been notoriously overworked since debut. We've all seen how many NCT subunits he is in, but this video is specifically about other schedules too. People were shocked to see that somebody had actually overtaken Mark for the most schedules of any single idol last year. That's the sheer extent of how much Jaehyun did in 2024. 2024 was a leap year, so that means Jaehyun completed an average of almost 2 schedules every day, of course not accounting for any times he might have done less and gotten a day off, but this of course just means there will have been days where he did 3 or even 4 schedules back to back. Now of course these won't all be the things that were separate to his responsibilities as boynextdoor's leader. Some of these will include recording their music, dance practices, music show performances, things the rest of the group were doing. But there were also a lot of other things he did in 2024, the most notable being his time as a music show host or MC. From the beginning of January 2024, it was announced that Jaehyun would be joining riize's Sohee and zerobaseone's hanbin as the newest MCs of M Countdown, which airs every Thursday. I believe at the time of me speaking, Jaehyun is still one of the hosts of this show, which of course will have contributed significantly to his schedule, with both rehearsals and live shows every week. The next example I wanted to discuss is also the leader of their group actually, and that is nmixx's haewon. While nmixx are busy growing their fan base and recognition for their incredible vocals, haewon has also been making an additional name for herself outside of just the usual expectations of an idol. And in 2024, I think we really saw a surge of interest for haewon, and maybe even nmixx as a whole thanks to her various appearances across the variety side of the industry. Haewon appeared in various variety shows, including radio shows and Lee Youngji's Nothing Is Prepared show, you know, with all the alcohol. Things really seemed to take off for variety star haewon when she began to feature on season 2 of the show Work Doll, which is basically a variety series where a K-pop idol tries out various different job roles. Haewon's appearances are uploaded to the Workmen YouTube channel, with pretty much every video always having over 1 million views and some of her moments going viral, such as the famous Wemo check. Thanks to her various variety show appearances, haewon is a much loved household name in Korean media at the moment, but you can only imagine how much additional work this is for her, aside from her usual expectations as a member of nmixx, who pride themselves in their performance abilities. Let's look at one more example because I think you guys get the idea, and for that we'll return back to that same report that revealed Jaehyun to be the busiest male idol of 2024. We're now going to look at Kiss of Life member Natty, who was listed as the female idol with most schedules in 2024 with 583. I'd also like to note, by the way, that this number puts her in 13th place place on the list. I've decided to discuss Natty because she specifically has a lot of other schedules that were outside of her responsibilities as an idol, but just think of all those other overworked idols in between the places we've spoken at the beginning and in 13th. Kiss of Life have been making quite a name for themselves globally and have definitely grown a lot within just the few years they've been around, touring, coming back consistently. In 2024 specifically, member Natty found herself doing a lot of extra activities outside of the group that contributed to her high number of schedules. A lot of these included variety show appearances on popular shows such as Knowing Bros, but interestingly, Natty was also selected to appear on quite a number of online shows last year that aired in places such as YouTube. Thanks to the image Natty has gained from her various online appearances, in November 2024, it was announced that Natty would be taking over from GOT7's Bam Bam to host his talk show Bam's House. Okay, so now we have looked at some examples, I thought it would be interesting to look at some of the positives that can come from an idol having so many schedules, which I don't normally do in these kinds of videos, but there are some for this, I swear. First of all, an idol with a whole bunch of schedules outside of their group's activities can get the group's name out there to a much wider audience outside of just the music side of the K-pop world. Just think, whenever one of these idols makes an appearance on a variety show, they're going to introduce themselves as whatever groups, whoever. Everything they do is somehow linked back to the group they spend most of their time with, or their regular day job, if you will. While sometimes the same audience that watches variety shows may already watch K-pop artists or follow their careers, this won't always be the case. And sometimes an entirely different group or people might get to know of a K-pop group, thanks to seeing one of its members appearing on variety shows or being so entertaining that they intrigue them to check out their group. I think there will be some of us who have gotten into groups because we saw one member who was particularly funny. Or even from an industry perspective, people might now want to sign up the whole group for sponsorships after seeing one member. An example I can think where an idol did something extra that benefited the whole group is back when Momoland's Jaehyun did those advertising campaigns for Tropicana sparkling juice drinks. Jaehyun's fun personality and dancing in those adverts went so viral in Korea that people wanted to check out Momoland, and their next few releases did really well. Another positive that could come from idols having many schedules additionally to their regular ones is the way it could help them build a brand for themselves as individuals. Because there's always so many K-pop groups at any one time and lots of idols around, it can be harder for K-pop idols to differentiate themselves or stand out as much as they'd like to. But if they are participating in other additional activities separate from their group, it'll be easier for them to get their personality out there, for the fans and industry to get to know them better. At the start of 2025, Celeb Media conducted a survey across 100 entertainment broadcasting companies and producers, which concluded that nmixx's Haewon ranked top of the list of entertainers to look forward to in 2025, and she was listed as 2025's rising star. This is thanks to her additional activities outside of nmixx's promotions. And through doing all of these, idols like Haewon could help to secure their future without even realizing it. An example of this in practice would be Lovely's member Miju, who became so well liked from her variety show appearances that she continued to receive requests for variety shows even beyond her time promoting as a K-pop idol. Another example could be Block B's Pio. Although Block B haven't disbanded in any way, because Pio made such a name for himself in variety appearances, he has continued to be active within the media before and after his military service and while Block B aren't promoting, giving him additional work to do during that free time. And another reason why these additional schedules aren't always a bad idea is because they increase their profitability. The idea is simple. The more these idols work and earn, the more of an asset they become to their label. And this doesn't just benefit them when they get to prove their worth to their label, but this in turn very quickly increases the pool of resources their company will have available to elevate both their futures and that of their group. If an idol appearing in more shows or at other events makes more money for a company, then the company may choose to plug that money back into promotions for their group, because now people want to hear more from this person, what they do and their brand, or anything connected to them. So in turn, these idols working extra hard actually increases the potential opportunities not just for themselves but their whole group's development. Okay, we were nice for too long. Now it's time to look at the reality that unfortunately can occur for those idols who are overworked. Here are some of the negative implications that we can't ignore. First of all, the major issue with idols working overtime in areas outside of their performer roles is the health implications complications, both physical and mental. This is the major issue we're probably all thinking of, right? Like, this one's a no-brainer. Unfortunately, the one major sacrifice that comes with working hard is rest. And this is something that we already know K-pop idols do not get anywhere near enough of when they're doing just idol activities like touring or preparing for a comeback, let alone when they're also appearing elsewhere. The level of exhaustion that these idols must be feeling is not natural and definitely not a healthy way to live. Haewon of nmixx might have been absolutely killing it as a TV personality in the past year, but she also revealed that she sleeps around 1 hour per night when she has schedules and drinks an average of 10 cups of coffee per day, so much so that her friend and fellow idol Stacey member Zeehyun has actually expressed her concern for her health from doing the latter. Now, Haewon has expressed that she feels fine in herself and tells fans not to worry, she's only taking on as much work as she feels she's able to. But when you're working so hard non-stop, your body kind of goes into a sort of flight safe mode, if that makes sense, where you're just in survival mode because your body knows it has to carry on whether or not it wants to because you're not stopping pushing it. So your body kind of tricks you into thinking you're a-okay, but this only lasts for so long, and it's totally natural that eventually your body will go, okay, no, I've had enough, I need rest. I had to learn the hard way that if you don't let your body take breaks, it will eventually do it for you. On an entirely different note, another potential issue with idols overworking in individual schedules of course relates to that word, individual, and a potential imbalance in popularity across the group's members. Now, I know that it's only natural that groups will sometimes have members who might be more popular within the fandom or outside than others, but when you have one member of the group who is appearing pretty much everywhere even without the rest of the group, there's a likelihood that this person will grow a huge audience of their own, and people who are more like solo stans for them who get into them or maybe their group later. This isn't necessarily an issue with them gaining all the extra fans, that's nice of course. The issue is with the way this could lead to fans treating the rest of their group like they're secondary or not as important as them, and then being made to feel awkward when there's one member always being highlighted and the rest of them kind of just have to follow. I think third gen fans might remember us having this issue with EXID, where so many people got into the group thanks to Hani and her lovability. There were so many shows that only wanted to highlight Hani, even though she'd always expressed how important the rest of the group was for her. We're probably seeing the same happen nowadays, maybe in fourth gen with IVE's Wonyoung, where she's never exactly gone out of her way to get highlighted separately from the group, but because she's so popular within the sponsorship and advertising world, she's gaining a large fandom of her own, and negative people do try to make it out as though she's prioritizing herself and the popularity of her over her group, even though this isn't the case. Some people may argue that as long as there's some eyes on the group, then who cares who the most popular member is, as long as they're all getting some form of attention, but that's much easier to say than it is to deal with as a member of a group who may feel overlooked within your own fan base. I think I've discussed this in the past, but it relates back to the issue with that popularity imbalance. There was one occasion where Lapillus member Yui was on live and was flooded with comments asking where fellow member Chanty was, and Yui literally had to ask the fans to give her and the rest of the other members attention too. Sure, your group gaining attention thanks to one popular member would be nice, but after that novelty wears off, it would hurt to constantly feel like you're in the shadows of another member, especially in circumstances we're discussing where there might be members of a group who wanted to also do those additional schedules but weren't invited to do so by their label, so it's not like it's their fault exactly that they aren't gaining attention as an individual outside of the group. They could be thinking, that could be me too, if you just let me. And one more reason why a group member having all these additional schedules could be an issue is due to a potential decrease in time to just be an idol. We all know that in order to live up to the standards set by both the K-pop industry and fans, because our expectations make us just as guilty of this, then idols need to work hard at what they do. This is why K-pop idols train for 12 hours a day, working on their singing, dancing, rapping, and everything in between, just to prove they're up to standard. However, if an idol is expected to be elsewhere during their other work commitments, there is of course a likelihood that this would leave those idols with less time to hone in on their craft. For example, Jaehyun from boynextdoor may have rehearsals for his MCing role on M Countdown, as well as the live shows themselves and all the prep that goes into that. He's doing that every week, so that's at least one day he potentially loses every week where he can't rehearse his individual skills, but also his cohesion alongside the rest of his group. Now, I'm not singling out Jaehyun or doubting his adaptability in any way. Of course these idols know what they're doing, but there's simply not enough hours in the day sometimes to do everything that is expected of them. And this is why some idols such as Jaehyun end up with 3 schedules in one day sometimes. But even if they did get time to catch up on rehearsals, what's to say they won't be too tired or exhausted to even attempt to do so. You won't be able to perform at your best when tired, could struggle more to pick up new choreography, or give your best in the studio. So what's the point in working at half capacity? And this does ultimately delay comebacks if they need to spend extra time catching up group members who are constantly doing other things, maybe, who knows. But what I do know is if we see any deterioration in performance quality, K-pop fans would absolutely be the first to pick up on it and critique it. If K-pop fans see that idols who are doing it all and have all this additional work outside of group activities may appear tired on stage, or perhaps not giving their full 100% in a performance, you just know full well that they're going to get an influx of hate saying that what they're giving is not satisfactory, or questioning their commitment to the group because they've been selfish and focusing on promoting themselves, even though they don't get a say in where they're booked, but you know how fans can be. Okay, conclusion time, and time for me to share my thoughts on K-pop idols working outside of the idol world. See, for me personally, I do like when K-pop labels are smart enough to put their artists out there in other ways that isn't just performing at music shows or on tour. I think it's actually a good idea to utilise the members and their variety abilities to allow us as the public to get to know them better, and subsequently the group they're part of. Some people just have a natural knack for the way they appear on camera and are able to present themselves and their personalities if they're really funny. It would be a real shame for them to not be able to use this to their advantage and to benefit both their label and group mates. However, with that being said, and this is important too, there has to be some sort of balance. They simply cannot do everything, and even though they might appear to be handling things well and think it in themselves they're okay juggling everything, it is not natural and not safe for your health to be taking such a hit for the sake of a heavy workload. It's not worth the physical health, sacrifices to be active for 20 hours of the day, or sacrificing your mental sanity to lose so much sleep or be trying to do too much at once. I think these companies really need to evaluate exactly how high the expectations they're placing upon these idols who do additional activities outside of their group are. And rather than just piling all those additional responsibilities on top, I do think it would be fair perhaps to spread out these tasks that they give to other members of the group, to give them opportunities to show themselves too and ease the load on the idol doing everything, if you will. Idols are of course at the end of the day in this industry because they want to be performers. You could argue that all these additional activities also fall into the category of performing, but just for a camera or producers instead. But they don't technically fall into the job description of a K-pop idol that mainly just covers your singing and dancing sort of things. So I do think it's important for companies to still let idols do exactly what they signed up for, and that is to grow their careers as K-pop idols. If that involves growing their brand outside of the music industry, then I don't have a problem with that, just as long as some consideration has been taken into the fact that they are humans and need to be treated as such. Okay guys, and that was it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching if you got this far. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this topic in the comments. How do you feel about idols who have all these additional schedules outside of their work as idols? If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to be the first to hear whenever I upload, and I will see you next time. Bye guys!